Hello, this video is a continuation of a last video where I was investigating the use of the three 3D physics objects in Godot, the kinematic body, the rigid body, and the static body. Um, this is where I ended up with the last video. I watched it back and realized I missed a couple things. First of all, when I was trying to use constant linear velocity and it told me it didn't exist, I actually had a coding error. I just put 500. That should be a vector 3500. So that'd be the proper code. However, it still gives the error. But I Googled this, and I've not tried this yet, but it says to change the 3D, the physics engine. So if I go to project settings, and they're under, let's scroll down here, it's under physics 3D. There's a physics engine, and the thing I saw said it doesn't work in bullets, but does work in Godot physics. I'm on default, whatever that is. So let me try changing that. And is it still complaining? It is still complaining. Unexpected. Oh, I forgot to uncomment the ready function. Let me go change that back to just to make sure. All right. So this has the code correct, but it says it does not exist. It's not declared, which is a lie because it's in the documentation. So let me go back and change the physics engine from default, whatever that is, to Godot physics, and try again. All right, we'll try bullet. It doesn't like that. Okay, let's comment that out. And I'll go back to the static body, which is the floor. And we'll look at the linear velocity. We have a linear velocity set. Okay, so let me run it just with those settings. Now it's moving now because I've got the kinematic body program to move. Let me go fix that. Let's comment the kinematic body out for moving. All right, so nothing's happening. And that's with the static body has in the inspector these constant velocity settings. Project settings, 3D engine. We change Godot. Try again. Whoa! Okay. So the script, that was fast. The script function for constant angular velocity doesn't work in linear velocity, but when you pick the the Godot 3D engine, it looks like this does work. Let's put these back to 0. Move this to 1. And try that again. Okay, so the static body is now acting as a conveyor belt. I'm going to change the axis to z-axis. Make it a little faster too. We'll try that again. Okay. And for grins, we'll add some angular velocity. The y-axis should be spinning horizontally. Cool. So the static body itself is not moving, but when you pick the Godot 3D physics engine and use the inspector, you can make little conveyor belts with static bodies. So that's interesting. I don't know why the documented function doesn't seem to work, but maybe it's a bug. Interesting. So I notice the kinematic body isn't moving. Let's try, I don't know, embedding it a little bit into the floor. Yeah, kinematic body don't care. Kinematic body is like the honey badger, I guess. So the other thing I realized when I watched back my last video, oops, I thought I got rid of that. Let me take away this. Actually, but I want to try one more thing. What happens if we give it linear velocity in the y direction? Y up should be positive. Yeah, we'll leave it there. So one angular velocity, so that should impart spin, but y1 should kick it back up. I'm curious if it does. It does not. What if I go a bigger number? Okay. So you can, that doesn't make physical sense, but why should we make physical sense? We're not stuck to the real world. Boing. Okay. All right. I'm enjoying that a bit too much. And I have a slight rotation, so that's okay. I'm enjoying this too much. This makes me happy. All right, let me take away all that. We're back to a static floor. So the other thing that occurred to me is when I figured out how to move the kinematic body using rotate and translate in the script here. So we'll put the rotate and the translate functions back in. Oh, I slowed it down. That's why it's so smaller. So when I found those functions, I realized after watching the video, these functions exist on the spatial object. I was like, wait a second. A rigid body is also inherited from spatial, and a static body is also inherited from spatial. So if those methods belong to the spatial node or object, they should exist on static body and rigid body too. So let me try that out. Static body. I'll just copy the kinematic body code. Let me comment it out the kinematic body. So the kinematic body is not set to move. Let me prove that to us right now. All right, kinematic body is not moving. We'll go to the script for the static body. We'll put the same code in. Isn't declared in the current scope. Okay. Oh, speed rotate. I read too quickly. Let me copy the constants over. I thought it was telling me the same message as the other thing. Okay, so it was complaining about the lack of constants. All right, so I've applied the same code I had on the kinematic body to the static body. What's going to happen? It works. But notice it's not actually affecting the rigid body. I'm going to make the speed a bit faster, just so you can see it's moving and rotating. Now when it goes away, the physics object falls, or the rigid body falls. Oh, no, it just wasn't there in the first place. Oops. Let me move this down because I'm curious now. If it's sitting on there, what happens? We'll bring it up a tiny bit so it falls down just a little bit. Okay, so it stops. And then when the floor goes out from under it, it goes away. So what if we let's take the rotation out. This is the static body. Okay. What if we translate upwards? So that'd be in the y-axis. First, let's go downwards. So the floor should be moving down now, and then the static body follows it, or the rigid body follows it. Sorry. Well, it follows gravity. So what if we move it up? Will it push the rigid body up? Let's make it slower. It obviously did, but I didn't see it. Yep. So, So you can move a static body. Now I just read somewhere that says you shouldn't. I don't know why. It says if you want to move something, use a kinematic body, but clearly you can move a static body. But you're saying that's not what it's meant for. So, and those were people like devs and so forth. So they probably know what they're talking about. But interesting enough, those that rotate and translate commands or methods do exist on the static body, and they should also exist on the physics body or rigid body. Sorry. So let's just for grins. Actually, let me make sure I reset everything. So nothing should be moving except the rigid body. Okay. And let me move the rigid body back up again, just to watch it fall. And while I'm here, I'll go ahead and move the kinematic body up to show that it's not falling. Okay. So now let's go to the rigid body script. We'll add the movement constants. We'll add the movement code in the physics loop. It's kinematic, I want rigid. Okay. So this is going to move. Well, let's see what happens. So while physics is going to be pulling the rigid body down, my function is saying move up. So, oops, scene. I imagine, interesting. What in the world? Okay, I don't fully understand what happened, but physics is pulling it one way, and I'm sitting here going, hey, you should move up by 0.2. So apparently, gravity is an acceleration force in the real world. So that's why I have what should be a constant movement, but the gravity's acceleration is overcoming that. Now, I don't know what that's about, but it's interesting it followed the exact same pattern as last time. So there's no chaotic activity happening. So that's cute, but again, I think you're not supposed to do this. Why is it doing that? That I don't understand. But again, this is not what we're supposed to do, but it bounced higher. It did a flubber bounce. And I have no idea why it starts rotating. Well, so You can use the same commands you would use on a kinematic object to move, a kinematic body to move a rigid body or a static body, but you're not supposed to. I don't see immediately what the consequences are for a static body, but clearly the rigid body, when you're pushing on it, the physics engine is pushing on it, um, it doesn't, that results in some weird outcomes that you probably don't want and probably can't take advantage of. Another thing is this apply impulse. Let me make sure we reset. Okay. And while I'm on the rigid body, this to actually move it, like if you want to apply an explosion force or something, um, I've uncommented the apply impulse, which actually make this 0 for now. So I'm going to apply a force, an impulse at the center of mass of this rigid body in the +5, +5, +5 direction. Oops. Which should kick the block towards us and to the right. I didn't kick it near as far as it did last time, but I probably had the camera closer. And then if I went, I noted that this position, what is this called? Yeah, position of the impulse. So basically I'm applying the impulse off center. And so when you do that, it imparts, it's like hitting on the edge, right? So this thing is to block the cube is 2 by 2. So from the center, if we go 1 out, I should be hitting it right on the edge. In fact, let's go 1, 1, 1. So this should be applying an impulse right at one of the corners of the cube. One, 1, 1. Okay. But I did that a little too perfectly. So let's do a vector. I understand why I did that. Let's change up the vectors, right? Because I basically pushed it off center, but in the direction it's going, so I didn't impart spin. But this, I think, should impart some spin now that okay, yeah. So what occurred to me afterwards, like, wait a second, this doesn't have to obey the real world. It obeys physics, but not the real world. Can I apply a force outside the actual object? We'll go ahead and go like 5, right? The object is not this big. So this is applying an impulse in a position outside of the rigid body. And I'm expecting, because this is math, it'll work, because it's not the real world. Yeah. Cute. And just for grins, I'll put them all in the same direction. What happens? And again, the reason it's not spinning that time is because my position and angle, I'm hitting it perfectly perfectly in that direction. But any change to make something off center, let's make this 4. It should impart some angular momentum. Yeah. So that's fun. So those are the things that I thought of and wanted to try after watching my video, or first video back. And so yeah, you can, after all, move a rigid body and a static body, but you're not supposed to. And we can obviously see in the case of the rigid body, there's some unforeseen circumstances. With a static body, like if you wanted to make a moving wall, I mean, it looks like you could probably make that work. It looks like it still pushes on stuff, but it's not supposed to be that way. And I don't know if that'll be a problem or not. They want you to use a kinematic body if you're going to move it around. Even though all 3 of these inherit from the spatial node, which, come to think of it, just for grins, a 3D scene root is a spatial node. Okay, where's my scripts at? What movement do I have? All right, let me calm that down. All right, so everything's just acting natural. So let's take the spatial node, the whole scene. What happens if I move the whole scene? Let me attach a script to the scene. We'll put a couple of constants in there. We'll take the movement code. I have no idea what to expect with this. Probably nothing because, well, let's see. Because everything is a child of the spatial node, so I'm basically moving the world in the vertical, in the up direction, the positive Y direction, including the camera. All right, what if I move it in the downward direction? I'm wondering if that affects the physics, the falling rate of the rigid body. No, because the rigid body, I think it's falling. Let's make this faster. So spatial node, this is the whole scene. Just to make sure it's doing something, that it's actually calling this, I'm going to print some output that should show up pointing at the screen. Show up in this window down here. Yeah, there's a bunch of highs down there in the. So that code is executing, but I'm basically rotating my whole reference world. So I guess the physics. Okay, here we go. We'll rotate the world. Let's rotate one of the sideways axes instead of the. So this should rotate around the x-axis, so it should spin. Actually, let's go around the z-axis. I think z-axis is the left-right in this case. No, it's not. X-axis is left-right. All right. So the whole world is going to rotate like this or this. Ah, there we go. There we go. I don't know what the rigid body's doing. I don't know why I can still see it. It casts a shadow and I can still see it. And it appears to be falling towards the horizon. Oh, okay. Well, so I'm clearly moving my 3D scene around in the wider environment. So that's why the horizon is flipping around. And actually, so I'm rotating in the x-axis, so I'm actually rotating around the side-to-side axis, which means we're kind of rolling. So let me change it to around the z-axis instead. I have no idea what use this would be, but it's kind of fun to play with the engine, right? So this, now we should use it like in a spin. Yeah, there we go. And what I don't quite yet get is the gravity of the rigid body in the environment, or is it in the space that I'm rotating? Let me move this rigid body. Let me start it on the ground, so it doesn't start falling. Let's see what it does from here. Okay. Well, why can I? It looks to me like it's fault like down. The gravity down is the environment down, the global down. But if that's true, I don't know why it popped back in the frame briefly after spinning a time or two. Let's put it away from the camera so we can kind of see a little bit longer. Ooh, it's too far. I can't see it. So it's falling down, but it's not like accelerating off the screen. So I kind of think gravity physics may be related to our root scene and not the horizon. Yeah, otherwise that thing would be way out of frame by now, but it's still in frame. So I have no idea what use this could have, but I'm spinning my entire scene, the entire physics universe inside the environment, which is static. Yeah, I have no idea what use this is, but it's cool. All right, so I think I'll end the video here. I think I've poked at Godot and hope you learned a few things. I've learned a few things. Things you can do that you shouldn't, and maybe a peek at why you shouldn't, except for moving static bodies. I haven't figured out why you don't want to do that yet. But yeah, moving the world is weird. Okay, now I'm curious about something. I'm curious. I'm not ending the video yet. I want to do one more thing. Instead of rotating, what if in the ready we do a rotate Z? Does that? We'll do degrees to radians. Degrees to radians, 90 degrees. Basically, I think what I'm doing is I'm turning the entire world 90 degrees to one direction. And I want to see what the box does. Okay, so it's falling environment down. Interesting. So I don't really know why it wasn't accelerating out of frame when the scene was spinning. But again, it's probably because no one anticipated anyone to do that. Okay, well, all right. Now I'm going to end the video. I'm really going to end the video now.